when I gave the word. Now
Greetings, YouTube faithful. It's your boy Pharaoh J coming to you with what I believe is my 13th edition in my Pharaoh's Wisdom segment. And today, what I want to talk about is something that's been plaguing the sports world for years, but has really become prevalent right now, this year, because of certain things that have happened. And that's what I'm talking about, bandwagon fans. Well, I guess it actually started last year when Miami went and got LeBron and re-signed D-Wade and got Chris Bosh. Then all these South Beach Miami Heat fans coming out the woodwork. Half the people can't even spell Miami. That's what drives me crazy. Bandwagon fans. Now you have Chris Paul and with the Clippers, and then all of a sudden everyone's a Clippers fan. Like, oh, go Clippers! Like, come on, man, really? If you haven't been there for a team's depressing, sad hardship years, like for instance, an example is I'm a football fan. I'm a huge football fan. I'm a Minnesota Vikings fan. This year they were terrible. Last year they were terrible. But I'm still supporting that. That's my number one team. So like with the playoffs right now, they're not in the playoffs, so I'm not like, oh, I hope this team wins. I watch the games and enjoy them. Now there are teams I don't want to win, like the Giants, for instance, because I can't stand the Manning family. But that's a totally separate thing. Like I want the Patriots to win just because I like Tom Brady. But if the Niners, I think it's gonna be Patriots-Niners. If the Niners win, I would be like, oh my god, I can't believe the Patriots didn't win. It's not even like that. If the Vikings aren't in it, I don't have a diehard stake in it. I just kind of like to sit back and enjoy the playoffs. There are going to be teams I don't want to win, obviously, because I don't like them. But other than that, I just watch it. But then you have people who, when their team's eliminated, they're like, oh, go such and such. Oh, all of a sudden you're a diehard fan of this other team. Like, come on. You should be a fan of one, maybe two teams, as a diehard fan of one or two teams. And then you just kind of watch the other games. Like, I hate the Miami Heat, because I'm a Laker fan, but I watch them play the Spurs. I'm not really cheering for anybody because I don't like the Spurs either. I just watch them because I like to watch basketball. So whoever would have won that game, he won, but whoever wins didn't really matter to me because I'm not a fan of either team. There's teams that when I watch them, I want them to lose, like the Celtics. I want them to lose when they're playing anybody. The Heat, unless they're playing the Celtics, then I guess I want the Heat to win because I hate the Celtics more. But you're a fan of one to two teams. All these people that are all of a sudden Clipper fans when they weren't there for all the years before this year, the Clippers have made the playoffs 4 times in their 35-year history. I bet you those people weren't fans back then when they were missing the playoffs every year. And I'm not even a Clipper fan, but I remember the Clippers back with Darius Miles and Quentin Richardson. I used to love watching them because they were exciting to watch. But I've always been a Laker fan. But I like to watch them because they're exciting to watch. But you see, I probably know more about some of the former players than the people who are fans now. If you've been a fan of a team for years through the hardships, hey, more power to you. Then congrats to all the Clipper fans that have been there from the beginning because your team's going ham right now. High five. But all you people who just hopped on the bandwagon this year or when they signed salty old Blake Griffin, then you guys better go somewhere. Someone needs to cut the bandwagon off. Just unhitch the bandwagon from the truck and just let them fall off somewhere. The same thing goes for any other sport because I'm sure a lot of people became Niner fans now because they did well because they got a new coach and they want to claim to be Niner fans, but that's just sad. My dad has been a Niner fan for as long as I can remember. He likes college football more just because, he thinks it's a little more exciting, but he's been rooting for the Niners this year, and some people might think, oh, he wasn't a Niner fan. Nope, my dad has always been a Niner fan. In our house, we have autographed pictures of Joe Montana. We have a picture of Joe Montana on, huddling right before he threw the play that was the catch to Clark. We have an autographed picture by Joe Montana on our wall. We have tons of Niner stuff around our house. So my dad's been a diehard fan. He's been there. He was there when they were really good before. He's been a fan since they've kind of, been down since the Alex Smith, before this year. But he's not a bandwagon hopper. He's been there through the rough times and the good times. But then you have people who are just all of a sudden Niner fans because they're doing good and just sad. Just sad. And another rule of sports fandom, there is no way, I don't care what you say, that you can be a fan of one team and their rival. That's just stupid. Like, if you're a Viking fan, there is no way I can be a Packer fan. That just makes no sense. One of my best friends, his dad says, if you're a real Vikings fan, you're a Packer fan too. Absolutely not. I'm not a fan of any other NFC North team. That just makes no sense. That's like, I'm a Laker fan, so I'm also a Celtic fan. No, there's no way. This doesn't work. You can't be a fan of a team and a fan of their rival. That just makes no sense. if I had to choose two, like I said, you can have 1 to 2 teams. My number 1 team is Lakers, and then I like to root for the Knicks because my favorite player is Amari Stoudemire, and he's on the Knicks. And another one of my top 5 favorite players is Carmelo Anthony, and he's also on the Knicks now. So I cheer for the Knicks, except when they're playing the Lakers, I want the Lakers to win all the time. It's that simple. I root for the Knicks because 2 of my top 5 favorite players are on the Knicks, and I root for the Lakers because I'm always rooting for the Lakers. That's just how it is. So anyone who's a fan of a team and you weren't a fan 5 years ago, 10 years ago, then you should just go slap yourself because you're not really a fan. If you can't name a heartbreaking moment in that team's history, you're not a fan. Well, let me put it this way: a heartbreaking moment not in the last 5 years. For instance, the Vikings the 98 NFC Championship against the Falcons, where our kicker, who hadn't missed a kick all year, missed a kick. And the Falcons win in overtime and then lose to the Broncos 34-19 in the Super Bowl. That was heartbreaking for me. The 98 NFC Championship was heartbreaking. I cried. I'm trying to think how old. I was 10 years old. I was devastated. Well, actually, it was in January, so I was actually 9. I was devastated. Absolutely devastated. I'm still not over that. See, I've been there through the rough times. That was back when Robert Smith, who was a great, I think, underrated running back for the Vikings, who had a few great years, and then he just kind of retired because he didn't want to play anymore. But he was really good. I mean, I've been there for the Randall Cunningham, the Dante Culpeppers, when we first got Randy Moss. We had, we had Warren Moon, Chris Carter, Josh Reed, and Randy Moss. It was just, we were going crazy back then. But, that's me, an actual fan, a diehard fan, not someone jumping on the bandwagon. I watch some of the Clipper games now just because they become more entertaining to watch with an actual point guard, but I'm not a Clipper fan by any stretch of the imagination. It's really that's how it works. The only exceptions I can see to the whole bandwagon fandom is with college football or college sports, because I'm an LSU fan. I bleed purple and gold. I'm an LSU fan, diehard. My dad played. I'm from Louisiana. That's who I root for. But during bowl season, I'm SEC overall conferences, so I root for some of the other SEC teams. I hate Alabama, and I hate the result of the national championship. I'm still suffering from that. But had they been playing someone else, I would have probably wanted them to win because I like the SEC teams over any other conference. So I'm not a South Carolina. I don't like South Carolina, but I was rooting for them to beat Nebraska. I was rooting for Georgia to beat Michigan State. Wasn't really rooting for Vandy. I didn't think they had a chance to win. I was hoping Arkansas would win their game. But during the season when it's just SEC football schedule, I can't stand those other teams because LSU plays them. But that's the only exception. That you can root for other people, I guess, in your conference. It's really hard. It's harder in, say, the NBA because of the way it's kind of stretched out. I guess you could be a fan of the Pacific Division, the Western Conference. That's kind of weird because you like the Clippers and Lakers and Suns. That just seems too crazy. But in football, you can do that. I know people who are NFC East fans. Say you're a Cowboy fan, you're a Cowboy fan first, and you like the NFC East teams, etc., etc. But I'm not. I can't stand the NFC North. I'm a Viking fan. The Vikings are my team. I want the Saints to win because that's my home state team. I'm from Louisiana, so anytime they're not playing Minnesota, I want them to win. And then the Patriots because I like Tom Brady. That's how it is. But I'm strictly Vikings fan above all else. And then I root for the other 2 teams, the Saints obviously because I was born in Louisiana. But I'm not an NFC North fan by any stretch of imagination. I want all the other 3 teams to lose because that helps the Vikings out when they lose. I'm not rooting for them when they play other teams. That's just dumb. So it's a fine line. But honestly, like I said, if you haven't been a fan of a team and you haven't shed a tear for some devastating loss, really, really rough years, for baseball, I'm a Red Sox fan. Until 2004, oh my goodness, it was just miserable every year. This past year was miserable. They had a 0.4 or 0.6 chance of not making the playoffs September 1st, and they didn't make the playoffs. That was miserable. So, if you haven't been there for really, really rough times, then you can't call yourself a fan. Now, I don't like the Sacramento Kings, but they have some really, really loyal fans. I know of a few of them personally who are huge Kings fans, and then I know people who are straight bandwagon hoppers. Who were fans of, like my friend Ian, he's from Roseville, but he always says Sacramento. He was a Kings fan. Then when he came to college, because we were all Laker fans, he became a Laker fan. Now he's talking about, going to text me the other day, talking about go Clippers. He's a bandwagon hopper when it comes to basketball. He's hopping bandwagons left and right. Seriously, he better get his calves worked out because he is jumping from bandwagon to bandwagon. It's ridiculous. So for any of you sports fans out there, remember, be loyal to one, possibly two teams. I mean, I know with football, really for me, it's just the two, the Vikings and Saints, but I'm a fan of Tom Brady. He's one of my favorite players, so that's why if he's not playing the Saints or the Vikings, I kind of want the Patriots to win. But be a fan of one or two teams. Be loyal. You know, you're going to have some rough times. Every team's going to have their good times and their bad times, their miserable times, their great times, championships, not making the playoffs, you know, that kind of thing. So just be loyal to your team. Don't be quick to be a fan of another team because they got a couple good players. It happens. It's just the way sports works. One team's gonna gain some players, another team's gonna become down one year. It's gonna fluctuate. All the different teams are gonna get good players here, bad players there. It's just how it works. It's meant to kind of keep the balance. That's what the draft's for. That's what free agency's for, to kind of tilt the balance. Obviously, in some sports, you're gonna have constantly some teams that are going to be better than others. It's really evident in college football because of recruiting. Recruiting is probably the most unfair thing ever because once your team has a couple good years, you just start sucking in all those good players from around you. And then some of the other schools in the area, some of the smaller schools get dominated as far as recruiting is concerned. But in professional sports, basketball, football, baseball is a little tougher. Football and basketball, that's what the draft's for, to kind of keep that balance. The worst teams get the higher picks, so they can get better players and kind of come up with the top teams. That's how it's meant to be. So if you're a fan of a team, be loyal through the rough times and the great times. Because if you're loyal to your team in the bad times, you'll be rewarded with some success. Maybe not tomorrow, maybe not 3 years from now, 5 years from now, but eventually. And just because a team looks shiny and new now, don't jump on a bandwagon. Just like a brand, your friend gets a new car, and you're like, oh my God, I never liked BMWs, but that BMW looks really nice. I need to go buy one. Don't do that. If you're a fan of Infiniti or a fan of Lexus or Mercedes, don't go jump on the BMW bandwagon because your neighbor went and got one and it looks really shiny and new. A lot of things look nice when they're new, but then they break down over time. It's just not work. Sports cars look nice and shiny. You're an Infiniti, like I said, you're an Infiniti, loyal Infiniti customer, loyal Mercedes customer or Lexus or whatever. When your neighbor gets a new shiny car, it's going to be appealing because it's new and shiny. But stay loyal. Same thing with sports. The Clippers look really new and shiny right now with Caron Butler, Chris Paul, Chauncey Billups, the whole gang, Randy Foye and everything. But it's because they're a new car. Be loyal to your team. You're a Laker fan, be loyal to your Lakers or the Heat or the Suns or whatever your team is. Be loyal to them. Don't hop on the Clipper bandwagon because they look new. Seriously. Oh, because they look new. We had technical difficulties. That's why those are off. Be loyal. Don't fall for the new shiny car trick. It happens. Just stake with your team. They're going to have their ups and downs, but stay loyal and you'll be rewarded over time. Maybe 3 years from now, maybe 5 years from now, maybe 15 years from now, but you will be rewarded. I just have no respect for any bandwagon hoppers. You should be ashamed of yourselves. Seriously. Not just kidding. Don't kill yourself. Don't kill yourself. Just kidding, guys. But seriously, no respect for people who hop bandwagons. So I really don't care who you are. You can be the super richest person ever. You can be Bill Gates. I don't care. No respect if you hop bandwagons. So loyalty. Remember that. I want you to, when you go to sleep tonight, I want you to think about it. Loyalty. And when I say tonight, I don't mean necessarily tonight because I don't know when this video is getting uploaded, but it will be uploaded at some point, and it will be a time where there will be a night coming up and you will think about it. Loyalty. Anyway, it's been another edition of your boys Pharaoh's Wisdom. Hope you guys have a great week. Love you guys, YouTube faithful. Peace.